Okay, so remember that a rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction. Those decimals, when you look at them, are going to be terminating or repeating. So I would make a note. A rational is either going to terminate or repeat. The biggest mistake I see is that a lot of people forget that repeating decimals are rational. Okay, if it does neither, then it's going to be irrational. Okay, and that's what we would call a non-terminating and non-repeating. All right, the first one has been done for us to show us what they want. It looks like the fraction can be simplified or not. So for this first one, we have a fraction of 3/10. So what would we mark it as? It is rational. And the fraction is already given to us, so -3/10. What about the square root of 40? Irrational. Okay, and you can't write a fraction. A fraction is not going to be able to be written for the square root of 40. Remember to take the square root, you press second, x squared, and then 40 to look at that decimal. You see it gives us this radical. Press your double arrow key, and it changes it to a decimal for us. So 6.324, and it goes all the way to the end of the screen, which means it keeps going, and there isn't really a pattern here. Okay. The square root of 81 is equivalent to what number? 9, and 9 is rational. And how do we write 9 as a fraction? 9/1. 2 1/3, rational. And how do we write that mixed number as an improper fraction? So multiply the large number times the denominator. So 2 times 3 is 6, and then add the numerator. So 6 plus 1 is, so it's 7/3. What about 0.35? It is rational. Remember, your calculator will find a fraction for you, so type in 0.35 and just press this double arrow key. 7/20. You could also remember that you have decimal placement values here. This is really 35/100, which will simplify to 7/20. What about this repeating value, 0.3 repeating? Rational. And how do we write that as a fraction? 1/3. Remember, your calculator is capable of doing that also. So if you type in 0.3 repeating all the way to the end of the screen and press your double arrow key, it will give you 1/3. What about -9? Rational. And what is the fraction? Yeah. What about 3.4? It is rational. And so this is 3 4/10, but we need it as an improper fraction. Remember, 3 times 10 is 30, plus 4 is 34. 34/10 is an option. Can we simplify that further? Which is what? 17/5. And what about the square root of 2? Irrational. I'm just going to put an I for irrational. And we don't have anything to put over here because there's not a fraction for it. All right, let's talk about 11 through 15. It's basically asking us the same thing, except for we're just identifying what type of decimal it is. So -0.6, is that rational or irrational? Rational. And what type of decimal? Terminating, because it ends at 6/10, right? What about the square root of 100? Rational. And what type of decimal is that going to be? Terminating. What about 2/5? What's the decimal for that? It is rational because it is a fraction. What's the decimal? And 0.4 is terminating. What about -2/3? Give me the decimal first. Okay, so 6 repeating, which is rational and repeating. And then this last number, irrational and neither. Very good. Okay, turn to the back. On the back side of this paper, make sure that you're following along with me. This first one, number 16, it says, which of the following is equivalent to this fraction? So you're just dividing. 17, which of the numbers is irrational? So just look at for each one, find the one that's neither. For number 18, the first 18, there's two of them. Which of the following numbers is rational? So look at those decimal places. Number 18, which of these is terminating? So once again, check out your decimals. 19, 20, and 21, you are changing these mixed numbers into improper fractions. Okay? For numbers 22, 23, and 24, you are going to use these three symbols to put on this blank. What is this symbol here that has the vertical lines? Do you remember? It's absolute value. So the absolute value of -5 compared to the absolute value of -3. What does absolute value mean? What's it asking us? Okay, so right underneath this, absolute value. And what that means is the distance from 0. We're only talking about the distance from 0. So what is the absolute value of -5? 5. Write that above it. What's the absolute value of -3? 3. Is it coming back to you now? Okay. And then 25, 26, 27, and 28, you are placing these points on this number line. It doesn't mean you draw arrows to where they go. It doesn't mean that you write the number above each tick mark. So if I asked you to write 2.9 on the number line, you would place it here. Okay? All right, so go ahead and answer the back of that paper.